Stories circulate of cities emptying overnight, leaving behind only echoes and unanswered questions. One such story speaks of a staggering disappearance: 300,000 people vanished from a once thriving urban center. This figure, often cited in whispers and digital forums, presents a profound challenge to researchers and historians. It begs the question, how could such an immense population simply cease to exist? While the precise location of this alleged mass exodus remains elusive, the reality of rapidly depopulated towns, though on a smaller scale, is a haunting part of our history. We investigate one such case to understand the mechanisms that can unravel a community. In northeast Oklahoma, a place called Picher stands as a stark monument to a different kind of vanishing. Its story isn't one of a sudden, inexplicable mass disappearance of hundreds of thousands, but a chilling, gradual exodus driven by environmental devastation. Picher, once a vibrant boom town, slowly emptied, its population dwindling from thousands to mere dozens, then to none, all due to a slow-motion catastrophe. This is a story not of a mysterious rapture, but of an industrial legacy that poisoned the land and its people, forcing a complete abandonment. Its narrative offers a compelling framework for understanding the forces that can eradicate a city. The story of Picher begins not with a whimper, but with a bang, the thunderous roar of industry. In the early 20th century, the discovery of vast lead and zinc deposits transformed this patch of land into a frenetic mining hub. It was a classic American boomtown narrative. People flocked from all corners, seeking fortune and opportunity. Mining operations expanded rapidly, creating jobs and drawing families, businesses, and dreams to the tri-state mining district. This era saw Picher rapidly ascend, a beacon of prosperity built on the riches beneath its surface, setting the stage for its dramatic rise and eventual, tragic fall. Picher's strategic importance truly crystallized during World War I. The insatiable demand for metals to fuel the war effort turned its mines into a vital national asset. The city became a crucial supplier, providing an astonishing 50% of the lead and zinc needed by the United States. This period marked Picher's zenith, transforming a regional boom into a cornerstone of American industry and defense. Its mines worked around the clock, propelling the city's population and economic output to unprecedented levels. This was Picher at its peak, a testament to human endeavor and national necessity, unknowingly sowing the seeds of its own destruction. At its height in 1926, Picher's population swelled to approximately 14,000 residents. This figure, though far from the fabled hundreds of thousands of some vanished cities, represented a vibrant, thriving community for its time. Schools, churches, businesses, and homes filled its streets, reflecting the prosperity brought by the mines. Families built lives here, drawn by the promise of steady work and a close-knit community. However, beneath this surface of bustling life and economic stability, the very industry that sustained Picher was silently carving out an ecological disaster, a ticking time bomb buried deep within the earth. The prosperity, however, was finite. As the mid-20th century approached, the rich veins of lead and zinc began to diminish. By the 1950s, the once booming mining operations experienced a significant decline. The vast tunnels and shafts, which had once yielded immense wealth, were becoming less productive. This economic shift marked the beginning of Picher's long, slow descent. Jobs became scarce, and families, dependent on the mines, started looking elsewhere for work. The foundational industry that built Picher was crumbling, setting off the initial waves of a population exodus that would eventually leave the city deserted. By the 1970s, the end was official. The last of Picher's mines ceased operations, their resources depleted and their economic viability gone. This final closure was a devastating blow, extinguishing the city's primary source of income and employment. The once thriving industrial heart of Picher stopped beating, leaving thousands without livelihoods. The decision to close these mines, while economically inevitable, unleashed a cascade of socio-economic consequences that would reshape the town's destiny. It forced residents to confront a harsh new reality, catalyzing the first significant stages of Picher's population drain and foreshadowing its eventual abandonment. With the mines gone, Picher's population began its steady, undeniable retreat. By 1980, the number of residents had plummeted to approximately 2,500. This represented a substantial decrease from its peak of 14,000, signaling a community in crisis. Families, faced with unemployment and a lack of economic prospects, were forced to make the difficult decision to leave their homes and seek opportunities elsewhere. This initial exodus was primarily driven by economic necessity, a clear and direct consequence of the industrial collapse. It was the first stark indicator that Picher's vibrant past was fading into a bleak, uncertain future. Even as the population dwindled, a far more sinister problem was slowly surfacing: the toxic legacy of a century of mining. For decades, the byproducts of lead and zinc extraction, millions of tons of chat piles and acid mine drainage, had been accumulating, ignored or underestimated. These were not just unsightly waste, they were reservoirs of heavy metals and hazardous chemicals. The environmental impact began to manifest in alarming ways, quietly threatening the health of the remaining residents. This slow-burning crisis would eventually eclipse economic concerns, revealing the true cost of Picher's industrial glory and initiating the next phase of its decline. Dominating Picher's landscape were the monumental chat piles, vast, mountain-like mounds of finely crushed rock, a direct byproduct of the milling process. These towering structures were not benign; they contained an estimated 70 million tons of mine waste, loaded with lead, zinc, and other heavy metals. Children often played on these piles, unaware of the silent poison they carried. Wind would scatter their toxic dust across the town, contaminating homes, schools, and playgrounds. These man-made hills stood as a constant, visible reminder of Picher's industry, now transformed into a pervasive, insidious threat to public health. Beneath Picher's surface lay another layer of danger, an intricate network of abandoned mine shafts and tunnels. Once drained for extraction, these subterranean voids gradually filled with water after the pumps were turned off. This wasn't ordinary groundwater. As water flowed through the mineral-rich rock and waste, it became highly acidic, dissolving lead, cadmium, and zinc from the surrounding environment. This acid mine drainage then began to seep into the local aquifer and surface waters, contaminating rivers and streams, and posing a severe threat to any remaining inhabitants and local wildlife. It was an invisible, spreading poison. The underground infrastructure also created a physical peril. The hundreds of miles of unmapped mine shafts and stopes beneath Picher left the ground dangerously unstable. As wooden supports rotted and erosion took its toll, the earth began to collapse. Sinkholes became a frequent, terrifying occurrence, swallowing homes, roads, and entire sections of land without warning. Residents lived with the constant fear that the ground beneath their feet could give way at any moment. This physical threat added another layer of urgency to the growing environmental crisis, making the city not only toxic but structurally unsound. The omnipresent lead dust and contaminated water soon manifested as a profound public health crisis. Studies revealed alarmingly high levels of lead in the bloodstreams of Picher's children. Lead poisoning, known to cause severe developmental delays, neurological damage, and other chronic health issues, became a devastating reality for families. Eyewitness accounts from residents described children suffering from unexplained illnesses, their futures potentially compromised by the very ground they played on. This direct human toll transformed the environmental problem from an abstract concern into a deeply personal tragedy, fueling a growing sense of panic. By the late 20th century, the scale of Picher's environmental catastrophe could no longer be ignored. In 1983, the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, designated Picher as part of the Tar Creek Superfund site, an area stretching across parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri. This designation marked it as one of the most polluted sites in the United States, acknowledging the severe environmental degradation and health risks. It was a formal recognition of a disaster years in the making, finally bringing federal attention and resources to address the pervasive contamination and its deadly consequences for the remaining community. With the Superfund designation, government intervention escalated beyond mere observation. The situation in Picher was deemed so critical that a comprehensive plan was needed. This involved not just environmental remediation, but also addressing the human element of the crisis. Federal agencies, including the EPA, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, began coordinating efforts. Their primary goal was to mitigate the risks to the remaining population, which by 2000 had shrunk to approximately 1,600, a clear sign of continued decline despite official awareness of the crisis. One of the most drastic measures implemented was a voluntary buyout program for Picher residents. Beginning in 2005, the government offered to purchase homes and businesses from property owners, providing them with financial assistance to relocate to safer areas. This was a direct acknowledgement that Picher was no longer a viable place to live. Eyewitness accounts from those who participated describe the bittersweet relief of leaving a toxic environment, mixed with profound sadness at abandoning their homes and community. The program was designed to facilitate a controlled, voluntary exodus, but it also formalized the impending dissolution of the town. In 2006, the Environmental Protection Agency issued an updated assessment of the Tar Creek Superfund site, publicly declaring Picher the most toxic waste site in the United States. This chilling pronouncement underscored the severity of the lead contamination, the ongoing threat from sinkholes, and the pervasive acid mine drainage. It left little doubt that the city was unsalvageable. The official statement from the EPA essentially sealed Picher's fate, providing irrefutable evidence that living there presented an unacceptable health risk. This declaration was a pivotal moment, shifting the conversation from remediation to outright evacuation. The mandatory nature of the buyout program, and the EPA's stark warnings, elicited a complex emotional response from Picher's remaining residents. There was relief for many, especially parents concerned about their children's health, but also profound grief. This wasn't just abandoning a house, it was tearing apart generations of community bonds and a way of life. Eyewitness accounts speak of neighbors helping each other pack, of tearful goodbyes, and of a shared sense of loss. The decision to leave was often agonizing, highlighting the deep attachment people form to their homes, even when those homes become dangerous. As if the environmental and economic woes weren't enough, Picher faced another catastrophic blow. On May 10, 2007, a powerful EF4 tornado ripped through the already ailing town, adding natural disaster to man-made tragedy. The storm destroyed approximately 150 homes and businesses, further accelerating the exodus. For those few who had resisted the buyout, the tornado was a cruel twist of fate, making their decision to stay virtually impossible. It was a stark reminder of Picher's vulnerability, both to the earth below and the skies above, pushing even more residents toward the difficult choice of permanent relocation. In the wake of the buyout program and the devastating tornado, Picher's streets grew increasingly desolate. Businesses closed their doors permanently, boarded-up windows becoming a common sight. What had once been a bustling main street became a ghostly corridor of decaying structures. The economic collapse that began with the mine closures accelerated dramatically. Property values plummeted to zero, leaving remaining homeowners with unsellable assets. The town was not merely losing residents, it was shedding its very economic and social fabric, unraveling brick by brick, family by family, until only silence remained. By the final years of the decade, Picher was a ghost town in all but name. The last holdouts, individuals deeply rooted in their community, or perhaps unable to leave, watched as their neighbors departed one by one. Government officials described the intense pressure and heartbreaking choices faced by these remaining residents, often elderly or infirm. This was not a sudden disappearance, but a protracted, painful farewell. The initial lure of a boom town had given way to the grim reality of a toxic landscape, where the promise of prosperity had been replaced by the imperative of survival. The hundreds of thousands never vanished here, but a community certainly did. The official end for Picher came in 2009. After decades of environmental degradation, economic decline, and population exodus, the city council voted to formally dissolve the municipality. This historic decision marked the complete erasure of Picher from the map, a once thriving center reduced to a federal Superfund site. The last 20 residents were subsequently relocated, making the town truly uninhabited. This final act was the culmination of a century of boom and bust, prosperity and poison. Picher became a cautionary tale, a city sacrificed to industry, its memory now serving as a powerful warning. Today, Picher, Oklahoma, is a ghost town unlike any other. It stands as a federally designated exclusion zone, a landscape scarred by chat piles and punctuated by ominous sinkholes. Nature is slowly reclaiming what was once a bustling human settlement, but the scars of industry remain indelible. The few structures left are crumbling, silent witnesses to a forgotten history. Visitors are warned of the pervasive dangers: toxic dust, unstable ground, and contaminated water. This is not a city that disappeared by magic or mystery. It was systematically dismantled, poisoned, and abandoned, a stark and undeniable reality. So, what of the initial mystery, the alleged 300,000 people who vanished? Picher's story provides a crucial counter-narrative. While its population decline from 14,000 to 0 is profound, it does not fit the sensational hundreds of thousands figure. However, Picher highlights the very real, if often less dramatic, mechanisms through which cities can empty. The disappearance of a community, its culture, and its economic life, is a tangible and heartbreaking reality. The true mystery may not be how such a large number of people could vanish, but how readily a smaller, yet equally vibrant, community can be erased. Unlike purely mysterious vanishings, Picher's depopulation comes with clear, documented government explanations. The EPA's Superfund designation, the Army Corps of Engineers' structural assessments, and HUD's relocation programs were all responses to undeniable environmental and health crises. These agencies didn't obscure the reasons for Picher's demise, they actively worked to mitigate its impact, albeit after decades of industrial neglect. Their reports and interventions provide a transparent, if tragic, timeline of the city's forced abandonment, directly refuting any claims of a silent, unexplained mass disappearance by attributing it to known, documented causes. The human stories from Picher further solidify the documented narrative. Eyewitness accounts consistently describe a slow, reluctant departure driven by fear for health and safety. Former residents speak of children falling ill, of houses shaking from distant collapses, and of the agonizing choice to leave their homes behind. "We just couldn't risk our children's health anymore," one former resident stated, summarizing the overwhelming sentiment. These testimonies corroborate the official narrative, painting a vivid picture of a community forced to unravel by factors beyond their control, rather than vanishing into thin air. Beyond the environmental and health crises, Picher's fate was also sealed by an irreversible economic collapse. The loss of mining jobs initiated the first wave of departures, but the pervasive toxicity prevented any new industries from taking root. Businesses that once served thousands dwindled and vanished as their customer base evaporated. Property values plummeted, leaving residents with no equity. This economic desolation, coupled with the environmental dangers, created a feedback loop that accelerated Picher's decline, proving that a city needs a stable economic foundation as much as clean air and ground to survive. Picher serves as a stark case study in how environmental factors can completely decimate a community. The chat piles, the acid mine drainage, the sinkholes, and the resulting lead poisoning were not just problems, they were existential threats. These factors systematically eroded the city's habitability, making it impossible for humans to safely reside there. The environmental legacy, a direct consequence of unregulated mining, became the ultimate driving force behind Picher's abandonment, demonstrating the profound and often irreversible impact of human activity on delicate ecosystems and, consequently, on human societies. While Picher's demise is well documented, the broader mystery of cities losing hundreds of thousands can attract conspiracy theories. Some might speculate about government cover-ups, secret projects, or even paranormal phenomena. However, Picher's truth is far more prosaic, and perhaps more chilling: a slow, preventable disaster unfolding in plain sight. No secret organization spirited its people away. Instead, a combination of unchecked industry, economic shifts, and delayed environmental intervention led to its end. The conspiracy, if one could call it that, was the collective failure to prioritize long-term ecological health over short-term economic gain. Even with Picher's clear timeline, an unanswered question remains, not about Picher specifically, but about the broader phenomenon it represents. If Picher, a town of 14,000, could be utterly erased by environmental factors, what happens on a larger scale? Could a similar, albeit more widespread, industrial or environmental catastrophe genuinely lead to the abandonment of cities with populations in the hundreds of thousands, or even millions? The specific 300,000 figure may be an exaggeration or a conflation, but the potential asterisk for such mass displacement due to ecological collapse is a terrifying and largely unaddressed inquiry. Picher stands as a crucial lesson for urban planners, environmental policymakers, and communities worldwide. Its story underscores the critical importance of sustainable resource management, stringent environmental regulations, and proactive disaster planning. It teaches us that the long-term costs of short-term industrial gain can be devastatingly high, measured not just in dollars, but in human lives, health, and the very existence of a community. The mechanisms of Picher's disappearance, environmental degradation and subsequent forced relocation, provide a blueprint for understanding other, potentially larger, future population shifts. Picher is not unique in being a ghost town born from industry, though its scale of toxicity and government-mandated abandonment sets it apart. Across the globe, countless communities have risen and fallen with the tides of resource extraction. From coal towns to logging camps, the pattern of boom and bust is a familiar one. However, Picher's enduring legacy is a stark reminder that some boom towns don't just fade, they become irrevocably poisoned, their very ground made uninhabitable. It elevates the conversation from economic decline to an existential threat, changing our perception of what a ghost town truly means. The displacement of Picher's residents carried immense psychological weight. For many, leaving their lifelong homes, their schools, their places of worship, and their community networks was a traumatic experience. The forced relocation disrupted not just physical spaces but deeply ingrained identities. Eyewitness accounts reveal lingering feelings of loss, rootlessness, and anger. This emotional toll is an often overlooked aspect of population disappearances, underscoring that the cost of environmental negligence extends far beyond mere economic figures or contaminated land, impacting the mental well-being and social cohesion of entire generations. Could Picher's fate have been avoided? The consensus among environmental experts and historians is a resounding yes. Stricter environmental regulations from the outset, coupled with responsible waste management and a long-term plan for reclamation, could have mitigated much of the damage. The reliance on short-term profits over long-term sustainability was a critical oversight. Picher serves as a chilling testament to the consequences of neglecting environmental stewardship, a self-inflicted wound on a community that underscores the profound responsibility industries and governments hold in safeguarding public health and the environment for future generations. The ongoing efforts at the Tar Creek Superfund site represent one of the largest and most complex environmental remediation projects in the United States. While the city of Picher itself is gone, the EPA and other agencies continue monitoring the contamination, attempting to stabilize the land and treat the acid mine drainage. This massive undertaking is a stark reminder of the immense cost, both financial and environmental, of allowing such degradation to occur. It highlights that even after a community vanishes, its environmental problems persist for generations, requiring continuous, costly intervention to prevent further harm. Picher's legacy is complex. It's a story of American ambition, wartime necessity, economic prosperity, and devastating environmental short-sightedness. It challenges the romanticized notion of the American boomtown, revealing a darker truth about the ultimate price of unchecked industrial expansion. While the specific number of the 300,000 vanished, it may remain a narrative embellishment or a statistical misunderstanding. Picher demonstrates that entire communities can indeed disappear. Not due to alien abductions or magical spells, but through a slow, agonizing process of environmental poisoning and forced evacuation, leaving behind a silence more profound than any ghost story. As we confront global challenges like climate change, resource depletion, and industrial pollution, Picher's narrative takes on renewed urgency. The story serves as a stark warning about the potential for future disappearances of communities, driven not by mystery, but by ecological imperatives. Learning from Picher means prioritizing the health of our environment and the well-being of our citizens above all else. It means rigorous oversight, sustainable practices, and swift action when environmental threats emerge. The true mystery isn't why 300,000 people vanished from this city, but how we can prevent similar, documented vanishings from happening to countless others. Picher, Oklahoma, offers a tangible, heartbreaking answer to the question of how cities can disappear. It reveals that the true scale of such disappearances is often measured not in mythical hundreds of thousands in a single, inexplicable event, but in the gradual, agonizing erosion of thousands of individual lives and homes over decades. It's a testament to human resilience in the face of impossible choices, and a chilling reminder of the lasting consequences when industrial progress outpaces environmental responsibility. Picher's story is a profound, if painful, piece of our collective history, a quiet echo in the landscape.